The knife came down fast. Gene Park twisted just enough for the blade to miss his throat and tear into his shoulder instead. A chair crashed. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. 5 men closed in at once, their movements sharp and practiced, the kind you only learn when hurting people is your job. Gene slammed an elbow into a jaw, felt bone give, but a fist caught his ribs and drove the air out of him. He staggered, slipped on spilled soup, and went down hard. A boot pinned his wrist to the floor. Another blade flashed above his face. Laura Sam moved. If this opening already has your heart racing, pause for half a second. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment asking yourself one simple question. What would you do if staying invisible suddenly meant letting someone die? The blade never reached Gene. Laura slammed a metal serving tray sideways into the attacker's temple. Not wild. Not desperate. Clean. The man folded like his strings were cut. Another attacker turned, shocked, and she stepped inside his guard, drove the edge of the tray into his throat, then his knee. He dropped, gasping. "Get back!" Someone yelled in Korean. Laura didn't. She kicked a chair into the third man's legs, grabbed a bottle off a table, and smashed it against the corner, leaving a jagged edge. The fourth man lunged. She slashed once, shallow but precise, across his forearm. He screamed and backed away, clutching blood. Gene pushed himself up, eyes locked on her. Not fear. Calculation. The fifth man came from behind her. Gene saw it a second too late. "Behind you!" he rasped. Laura ducked as the knife sliced air where her neck had been. She spun, grabbed the attacker's wrist with both hands, twisted hard, and there was a wet crack. The knife clattered to the floor. She didn't hesitate. One punch. One kick. He stayed down. Sirens wailed in the distance. The remaining men looked at each other, then at Laura, then at Gene. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. One of them spat a curse, grabbed his injured partner, and they ran. The others followed, leaving blood, overturned tables, and stunned silence behind. For a moment, no one moved. Laura dropped the broken bottle. Her hands were steady, but her chest rose and fell fast. She turned to Gene and crouched, tearing a clean cloth from a nearby table. "Sit still," she said. Her Korean had an accent, soft but firm. "You're bleeding more than you think." Gene stared at her. "Who are you?" She pressed the cloth into his shoulder. "Someone who doesn't want trouble." He laughed once, short and painful. "You just broke 4 men in half." "Sit still," she repeated. Police sirens grew louder. Laura glanced toward the kitchen, then back at Gene. Her eyes flicked to the exits, counted them, calculated time. Gene noticed. Of course he did. "Don't," he said. "They'll want a statement." She met his gaze, something hard flashing beneath the calm. "Then tell them you never saw me." She stood and walked away, not running, just moving fast enough to disappear into the kitchen as officers burst through the front door. Gene watched the space where she'd been. He didn't blink. At a private clinic hours later, Gene lay on a bed while a doctor stitched his shoulder. His right-hand man, Miho, stood by the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. 5 men, Miho said. "No insignia. No claim. They came to kill you." "They almost succeeded," Gene replied. Miho hesitated. "The waitress." Jin's eyes shifted. "Find her." "To silence her?" "No," Gene said. "To thank her." Miho raised an eyebrow. He'd known Gene Park for 10 years. He'd never heard him use that word. Security footage played on a tablet. Laura's movements looped again and again. The tray strike. The wrist break. The calm between blows. Miho swallowed. "She's trained." "Yes," Gene said quietly. "And she didn't hesitate." In a small apartment across the city, Laura locked her door and leaned against it, breathing hard now that she was alone. She slid down to the floor and pulled her jacket aside, checking a bruise already blooming along her ribs. She pressed her fingers to it, hissed, then laughed under her breath. "Idiot," she whispered to herself. She stood, ran water in the sink, and washed blood from her hands. The water turned pink, then clear. She stared at her reflection. Same face. Same quiet life. Or it had been. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She didn't answer. It buzzed again. She turned it face down. Across the city, Gene sat up despite the doctor's protest. Pain sharpened his thoughts. It always did. She could have run, he said to Miho. Most people would. Maybe she froze. Miho offered. Gene shook his head. No. She chose. That night, either of them slept. Laura lay on her bed, fully dressed, listening to every sound outside. She knew the pattern now. Once you step into a powerful man's story, you don't simply walk out of it. Jean stood at his window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. Someone had tried to erase him in a public place. That meant war. But something else lingered beneath the anger. Curiosity. Who was Laura Sam before she became a waitress? And why did saving his life look so natural to her? By morning, the city would move on. The restaurant would reopen. News would fade. But for Laura and Jean, everything had already changed. And somewhere deep inside Laura, a question she'd buried years ago clawed its way back to the surface. How long can you run from who you really are before the past finds you anyway? Laura didn't go back to work the next day. She texted her manager something vague. Sick. Family issue. She knew better than to explain. Explanations created threads, and threads were how people pulled you back into lives you'd escaped. By noon, she was already packing. Not everything. Just essentials. Passport. Cash she'd hidden inside a book she never read. A small black pouch she hadn't opened in years. She hesitated before touching it, then shoved it into her bag like it could bite. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She exhaled slowly and answered this time. Hello? A man's voice, calm, respectful. Ms. Sam. My name is Miho. I work for Jean Park. Laura closed her eyes. Of course. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. You saved his life. Miho replied. No threat. Just fact. He wants to speak with you. I said no. Laura snapped. I don't want anything. Not thanks. Not money. Not protection. There was a pause. Then, softer. You were followed last night. Her blood ran cold. By who? We don't know yet, Miho said. But someone knew your face. Laura looked at the door, at the lock she'd already checked twice. Tell your boss to forget me. I can't do that. She hung up. Across the city, Jean Park listened to the dead line and felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Not anger. Interest sharpened by resistance. She's afraid, Miho said. Good, Jean replied. That means she understands the world. Jean stood despite the pain and walked to the window. Find who followed her. And her? No, Jean said. Not yet. That night, Laura didn't sleep. She sat on the floor with her back to the couch, lights off, listening. At 2 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. Slow. Careful. Someone trying not to be heard. She reached into her bag and pulled out the black pouch. Muscle memory woke up instantly. She moved to the door, pressed her ear against it. A whisper. A scuff. Then a soft click as someone tested the handle. Laura didn't think. She opened the door hard, drove her shoulder into the man's chest, and slammed him into the wall. Her forearm pinned his throat. Who sent you? She hissed. The man gasped. I'm just watching. Please. She twisted his wrist until he cried out. Who? I don't know names, he said. Only that the order came down. African woman. Restaurant. Intervened. Laura let him go. He stumbled back, terrified. Leave, she said. And if I see you again, you won't walk. He ran. Laura shut the door and leaned against it, shaking now. Not from fear. From the realization she tried so hard to ignore. She was back. At dawn, Jean got the call. She handled him herself. Miho reported. Jean smiled, slow and sharp. Good. She's dangerous, Miho said. And she doesn't want to be part of this. No one ever does, Jean replied. At first. He dressed carefully, wincing as his shoulder protested. Prepare the car. You're meeting her? I'm thanking her, Jean said. In person. Laura was halfway through burning old documents in her sink when the knock came. Calm. Unhurried. Confident. She froze. The knock came again. She opened the door to see Jean Park standing in her hallway, impeccably dressed, flanked by Miho and another man she didn't recognize. Ms. Sam, Jean said, inclining his head slightly. May I come in? No, she said immediately. I expected that answer, he replied. But I also know you won't slam the door. She didn't. He stepped inside, eyes taking in the room in one sweep. Sparse. Temporary. Someone ready to leave. You're bleeding, he noted, nodding at her bruised ribs. You should worry about your own stitches, she shot back. He smiled faintly. There. They stood facing each other, tension thick as smoke. I didn't save you for this, Laura said. I didn't ask for your attention. And yet, Jean said quietly, you stepped into a fight meant to kill me. Instinct, she replied. He studied her. Instinct like that comes from training. She said nothing. Jean turned to Miho. Give us a moment. Miho hesitated, then nodded and stepped outside. Silence settled. You could disappear, Jean said. New city. New name. But they've seen you now. I've run before, Laura replied. I can do it again. And live looking over your shoulder every day? He asked. That's not living. She laughed bitterly. You don't get to define my life. He leaned closer. I get to define the danger around it. Her jaw tightened. I'm offering protection, Jean continued. No chains. No demands. What's the price? She asked. He met her eyes. Honesty. Eventually. Laura shook her head. I don't trust men like you. And I don't trust women who fight like soldiers and pretend to pour soup for a living, he replied. For a moment neither moved. Then Laura stepped back. Leave. Jean studied her one last time, then nodded. I will. For now. At the door, he paused. They won't stop. Not until they understand you're not alone. He left. Laura locked the door and sank to the floor, heart pounding. Across the city, Jean sat in his car, eyes closed. She's going to be a problem, Miho said. Jean opened his eyes. She already is. And somewhere between fear and fury, Laura felt something else stirring. A question she'd never wanted to answer. What happens when the world refuses to let you stay small anymore? The second attack didn't come loud. It came quiet. Laura sensed it the way she always did. A wrong silence. The kind that pressed against the skin. She was walking home just after sunset, jacket zipped, head down, blending in with office workers and couples heading for dinner. Normal life. The kind she kept trying to borrow. Halfway down the block, the streetlights flickered. Laura slowed. A reflection moved in the glass of a closed shop. Not her own. She turned sharply. A hand clamped over her mouth. Laura dropped her weight instantly, stomped backward, and drove her elbow into ribs. The man grunted but didn't let go. Another shape rushed in from the side. She twisted, slipped free, and ran straight into the third. Too many. A punch caught her cheek. White flashed behind her eyes. She stumbled, recovered, kicked low, felt a knee give. Someone grabbed her hair and yanked her head back. Alive, a voice said in Korean. The boss wants her breathing. Laura smiled, blood in her mouth. That was their mistake. She slammed her heel into the attacker's foot, twisted her head free, and bit down hard on fingers near her face. He screamed. She rolled, came up swinging, grabbed a broken crate from the curb and cracked it across another man's head. But exhaustion crept in. Her ribs burned. Her vision narrowed. A van door slid open. This was how it ended. Not in a restaurant. Not heroic. Just dragged off a street and erased. A car screeched. Black sedan. No plates. Doors opened. Gunshots shattered the night. The men froze. One went down screaming. Another tried to run. He didn't make it 3 steps. Laura dropped to a knee, chest heaving, as Jean Park stepped into the light. He didn't shout. He didn't rush. He walked forward calmly, like this was an inconvenience, not chaos. Leave, he said. One man raised a gun toward Laura. Jean shot him without hesitation. Silence followed. Heavy. Absolute. Laura looked up at Jean, anger flaring hotter than fear. I told you to leave me alone. You were seconds away from disappearing, Jean replied. You're welcome. She pushed herself to her feet. You brought this to my door. No, he said evenly. I stopped it from crossing the threshold. Miho approached, eyes scanning the street. Clean it up, Jean ordered quietly. Men moved in, efficient, practiced. Bodies were dragged away. Blood washed with water from a truck that arrived too fast to be coincidence. Laura watched, arms wrapped around herself. This is your world, she said. I don't belong in it. Jean stepped closer, lowering his voice. You already do. She laughed, sharp and broken. You think I want this? I fought my way out once. And yet, Jean said, you're still standing. He studied her face, the swelling cheek, the fire in her eyes. Come with me. Tonight. Safe place. No questions. She hesitated. That hesitation could cost her everything. If you've ever been at a moment like that, where one choice rewrites your life, pause for a second. Like the video. Subscribe if you haven't. And drop a comment. Would you walk away, or step into the unknown to survive? Laura exhaled. One night. Jean nodded. That's all I ask? The safe house was quiet. Too quiet. Laura hated it instantly. She sat at the kitchen table while a medic checked her ribs. Jean watched from the doorway, arms crossed, unreadable. Nothing broken, the medic said. Bruising. She's tough. I know, Jean replied. When they were alone, Laura stood. Talk. Jean gestured for her to sit. She didn't. They didn't come for me because of you, she said. They came because of what I am. Yes, Jean agreed. And if I stay near you, this gets worse. Yes. She stared at him. Then why are you still offering protection? Because someone already decided you're a liability, Jean said. And I don't abandon assets. I'm not your asset, she snapped. No, he said calmly. You're a variable. She laughed despite herself. You talk like a war. He met her gaze. That's because one is coming. Laura turned away, pacing. I buried that life. Training. Violence. Orders. Who trained you? Jean asked. She stopped. Her back stiffened. Not tonight. He accepted that with a nod. Fair. Silence stretched. Why did you really save me? He asked quietly. Laura closed her eyes. Images flashed. A younger face. Blood. A mistake that never stopped echoing. Because I know what it's like, she said, voice low. To be hunted and alone. Jean absorbed that. Then we're the same. No, Laura said. You chose this. He didn't argue. Later, as Laura lay awake on a couch that wasn't hers, she stared at the ceiling and realized something terrifying. She hadn't run. For the first time in years, she stayed. And somewhere in the city, the people who wanted Jean Park dead learned a new name. Laura Sam. And once a name like that enters the game, it never leaves quietly. Morning came slow and gray. Laura woke before the sun, senses already sharp. For a second she didn't know where she was, then memory snapped into place. The safe house. Jean Park. The alley. Guns. She sat up quietly. The room was clean, almost sterile. No personal touches. Temporary. That made sense. People like Jean didn't settle anywhere long enough to get comfortable. She padded toward the window and peeked through the curtain. 2 men outside. One leaning against the car, pretending to scroll on his phone. The other watching the street a little too carefully. Guards. Laura exhaled through her nose. So this is what safety looks like, she murmured. Behind her, a voice answered. It's what survival looks like. She turned fast. Jean stood in the doorway, freshly dressed, hair still damp from a shower. His arm was in a sling, but his posture was relaxed, controlled. You always sneak up on people? She asked. Only when they can handle it, he replied. She folded her arms. What happens now? No, Jean said, stepping inside. We figure out who wants us both dead. I don't remember agreeing to US, Laura said. Jin's lips curved slightly. You stayed. She didn't respond. They sat across from each other at the small table. Coffee steamed between them. Laura didn't touch it. The men last night, Jean said. They weren't amateurs. They weren't yours, Laura replied. No, he agreed. They belonged to someone impatient. Someone you crossed, she said. He met her gaze. Everyone eventually. Laura leaned back. You should let me disappear. I draw too much attention. And yet, Jean said, they came faster once they knew your name. That landed hard. You didn't tell me they already knew who I was, Laura said quietly. I didn't know, Jean replied. Until this morning. He slid his phone across the table. On the screen was a grainy image. Her face. Taken from the restaurant's security camera. Under it, a line of text in Korean. Asset identified. Laura's jaw clenched. They're organized. Yes, Jean said. And thorough. She pushed the phone back. This is why I left. Once people start labeling you, you stop being human. Jean watched her carefully. Where did you go when you left? Her eyes hardened. You don't get that story yet. He nodded. There. Miho entered quietly, carrying a tablet. We traced the van. It's linked to a subcontractor used by Co. Kong. Laura looked up sharply. Co. Kong? Jin's expression darkened. My former ally. Former. Laura repeated. He believes I've grown careless. Jin said. Last night was meant to prove it. Laura stood. Then I'm leverage. Yes, Jin said simply. She stared at him. You say things like that too easily. I don't lie to myself, he replied. Silence pressed in. What do you want from me? Laura asked finally. Jin didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was lower. I want you alive. That's not an answer. I want you protected, he continued. Until this ends. And after? He held her gaze. After you choose. Laura scoffed. You really think people like us get clean endings? No, Jin said. But we get choices. She turned away, pacing. If I stay, I fight. Yes. If I fight, she said, I don't hold back. He watched her with something like respect. I wouldn't expect you to. She stopped pacing. I'm not your soldier. I don't need soldiers, Jin replied. I need someone who sees what others miss. Laura studied him. You're dangerous. He smiled faintly. So are you. A phone rang. Miho glanced at the screen. Co. Kang's men are moving. Warehouse district. Jin straightened. He's testing the perimeter. Laura's pulse picked up. The old rhythm was back. Planning. Timing. Risk. She hated how familiar it felt. Stay here, Jin said. Laura laughed. Not a chance. He looked at her sharply. This isn't a restaurant brawl. No, she agreed. It's worse. Which is why you shouldn't go without me. Miho frowned. Boss. Jin raised a hand, eyes never leaving Laura. You're sure? She stepped closer, voice low. You said honesty was the price. Here it is. Running never saved me. Fighting did. For a long moment, Jin said nothing. Then he nodded. Gear her up. Miho's eyes widened slightly, but he moved. Minutes later, Laura stood in front of a mirror, pulling on a jacket that concealed more than it showed. The black pouch from her bag lay open on the counter. Inside were tools she knew like her own hands. She strapped a blade to her thigh, checked its balance. No hesitation now. Jin watched from the doorway. You've done this before. Yes, she said. For who? She met his eyes in the mirror. For myself. The drive to the warehouse district was silent. City lights blurred past. Laura felt the old edge settle into place, sharpening her thoughts. She glanced at Jin. If this goes bad. It won't, he said. That's not what I was going to say, she replied. If it goes bad, don't come looking for me. He turned to her. That's not how this works. She almost smiled. The car slowed. Ahead, warehouses loomed like dark teeth against the sky. Somewhere in there, Co. Kong was making his move. Laura flexed her fingers. Whatever life she'd been pretending to live was over. And the night was just getting started. The car rolled to a stop 2 streets away from the warehouse. Jin killed the engine. No one spoke. The night pressed in, thick with oil and damp concrete. Somewhere metal clanged, distant and hollow. Laura leaned forward, studying the layout from memory and instinct. Too open, she said. Which means the real activity is inside or underground. Miho glanced at her. There's a basement level. Freight elevator. Laura nodded. That's where he'll be. Jin adjusted his jacket. Co. Kong likes to watch from shadows. Men like that always do, Laura said. It makes them feel powerful. They moved on foot. No rush. No chatter. Every step measured. Laura counted guards by the rhythm of footsteps, by the way light shifted when bodies crossed windows. 2 at the front. 1 pacing the side. 1 on the roof, pretending to smoke. Amateurs pretending to be professionals. Laura crouched beside Jin. Your people? No, he replied. He's rushing. She smirked. Good. Rushed men make mistakes. Miho signaled from behind. Jin nodded once. Laura moved first. She slipped into the blind spot, scaled a stack of crates with quiet efficiency, and reached the roof before the guard finished his cigarette. Her hand clamped over his mouth. 1 twist. 1 push. He slumped unconscious, still breathing. She took his radio and whispered. Clear. Jean exhaled slowly. He hadn't realized he was holding his breath. Inside, the warehouse smelled of rust and fuel. Voices echoed from below. Laughter. Too confident. They descended the stairs toward the basement. Seo Kang's voice carried upward. Smooth. Mocking. So this is what Jean Park sends now? Seo Kang said. Children with guns? Laura's jaw tightened. Jean stopped at the last step and looked at her. If this goes wrong. She cut him off. It won't. But if it does, you leave. He shook his head. We discussed this. She leaned in, voice barely audible. You don't know what I'm capable of when cornered. He met her gaze. Neither do they. They stepped into the light. Seo Kang stood near a table, hands clasped behind his back. Tall. Polished. Smiling like this was a dinner invitation. Around him, men stiffened, hands drifting toward weapons. Jean, Seo Kang said warmly. You look well. I heard you were bleeding on a restaurant floor. Jean smiled back. I heard you were hiding behind hired hands. Seo Kang's eyes flicked to Laura. Curiosity sparked. And you must be the waitress. Laura didn't blink. You made quite an impression. Seo Kang continued. You cost me good men. They weren't that good. Laura replied calmly. A murmur rippled through the room. Seo Kang laughed. I like her. She has spirit. He stepped closer. Come work for me. I'll double whatever he's paying. Laura tilted her head. He's not paying me. Seo Kang's smile faded slightly. Everyone gets paid. Not in money, she said. Jean felt it then. The shift. Seo Kang wasn't just interested. He was threatened. You think standing beside him protects you? Seo Kang asked Laura. When this ends, he'll be dead. Laura met his gaze. Then you should kill him now. Seo Kang's eyes flicked to Jean. You see? She's reckless. Jean replied evenly. She's honest. Seo Kang sighed. Pity. He snapped his fingers. The lights went out. Gunfire exploded. Laura moved before sound finished echoing. She grabbed Jin's arm and dragged him sideways as bullets tore through the space they'd occupied. She rolled, came up firing controlled bursts, forcing attackers back. Miho shouted orders. Jean returned fire, jaw set. Laura sprinted toward the table, slid across it, and kicked a man square in the chest. He flew backward. She seized his weapon, pivoted, fired again. Seo Kang retreated toward the elevator, guarded by two men. Don't let him leave! Jean shouted. Laura chased. A bullet grazed her shoulder. Pain flared hot. She ignored it, vaulted a crate, and landed hard, knees screaming. She slammed into the first guard, drove her blade up under his ribs. He dropped. The second guard swung. She ducked, headbutted him, and fired point blank. Seo Kang reached the elevator and slammed the button. Doors closing. Laura sprinted, dove, and jammed her arm between the doors. Metal bit into her forearm. She screamed but forced them open. Seo Kang stared at her, eyes wide for the first time. You're insane. Maybe, she said, breath ragged. But you're finished. A gun rose behind him. Bang. Seo Kang collapsed. Laura stood there, shaking, ears ringing. Jean reached her moments later, grabbing her arm. You're hit. She looked down at the blood soaking her sleeve. I'll live. He searched her face. You could have died. She laughed weakly. Story of my life. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real ones this time. Jean gave orders fast. Efficient. The kind of man who thrived in chaos. As they retreated, Laura's strength finally faltered. Jean caught her before she fell. Why did you do that? He asked quietly. Why push so hard? She met his eyes, exhaustion stripping away defenses. Because if I stop moving, I remember why I ran in the first place. He held her tighter. Then don't stop. Later, in the car, Laura stared out the window, pain catching up with her. Seo Kang was dead. But this wasn't over. It never was. Jean watched her reflection in the glass and realized something unsettling. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was choosing to stay. The safe house smelled like antiseptic and rain. Laura sat on the edge of the bed while the medic worked on her shoulder. She didn't flinch when the needle went in. Jean noticed. He noticed everything. You should have waited, Jean said quietly from across the room. She exhaled. And let him disappear? No. The medic glanced up. She's lucky. Clean graze. Few centimeters deeper and we'd be having a different conversation, Lucky, Laura repeated with a tired smile. That's one word for it. When the medic left, silence rushed back in. Heavy. Charged. Jean poured water into 2 glasses and handed her one. She accepted it, their fingers brushing briefly. Neither acknowledged it. Seo Kong is dead, Jean said. But his network isn't. Laura nodded. Men like him don't work alone. Someone will want revenge. Or control. Yes, Jean said. And they'll start with you. She laughed softly. I figured. He studied her face. Bruised. Exhausted. Still sharp. You should leave Korea. She looked up, surprised. That's new. I can get you out tonight, Jean continued. New documents. A place where my enemies have no reach. And you? She asked. I'll handle what's left. Laura shook her head slowly. That's not how this works. He frowned. You're not responsible for my war. She met his gaze, voice steady. I stepped into it. That makes it partly mine. Jean leaned back, frustration flickering through his control. You don't know me. I know, she said. That's why I'm staying. He went quiet. For the first time since they met, Jean Park looked uncertain. You don't trust me, he said finally. I trust you to be exactly who you are, Laura replied. A man who survives by pulling people into his gravity. And you? He asked. Who are you? She looked away. The question scraped against old scars. Someone who learned too young that power doesn't ask permission. Jean didn't press. Later that night, Miho returned with news. Seo Kang's death is spreading. 2 factions are already moving to fill the gap. Names, Jean said. Miho listed them. Laura listened carefully, mapping relationships, spotting patterns. They'll test you, she said. Small strikes. Probes. Yes, Jean agreed. They always do. And they'll test me harder, Laura added. Because I don't fit. Miho hesitated. Boss, with respect, bringing her deeper. I decide what's a risk. Jean cut in. Laura raised a hand. He's right. Both men turned to her. I don't need protection, she said. I need information. Jean studied her. You're asking to be involved. I already am, she replied. You just haven't admitted it yet. Silence stretched. Finally, Jean nodded. Then we do this properly. Over the next days, Laura learned Jin's world from the inside. Not the flashy parts. The quiet ones. Meetings where words mattered more than weapons. Long nights where loyalty was tested in whispers. And she proved herself again and again. She spotted inconsistencies in reports. Noticed patterns in movement Jin's men missed. Predicted an ambush that never happened because they weren't there to receive it. Miho watched her with wary respect. She thinks like us, he admitted one night. No, Jean replied. She thinks ahead of us. But pressure mounted. One evening, Laura returned to the safe house to find the door ajar. Her hand went to her weapon instantly. Inside, everything was untouched. Too untouched. Jean stepped in behind her. What is it? They've been here, she said. And they wanted us to know. On the table lay a single object. A photograph. Laura picked it up with trembling fingers. It was her. Younger. Barely an adult. Standing beside a man whose face she tried to forget for years. Her breath caught. Jean watched her closely. Who is that? She swallowed hard. Someone I left for dead. Jin's expression sharpened. You said you ran? I did, she whispered. After everything burned. The phone rang. Miho answered, then handed it to Jean. It's for her. Laura stared at the phone like it was a weapon. Answer it, Jean said gently. She took it. A familiar voice spoke, low and amused. Hello, Laura. Her blood turned to ice. I wondered how long it would take before you stopped hiding. She closed her eyes. You should be dead. So should you, the voice replied. Yet here we are. Jean leaned closer, listening. They're coming, the voice continued. Not for Jean Park. For you. The line went dead. Laura lowered the phone slowly. Jean searched her face. Who was that? She looked at him, eyes dark with memory and resolve. The reason I left my old life. Miho cursed under his breath. What does he want? Laura's jaw tightened. To finish what we started. Jean straightened, decision locking into place. Then he won't get the chance. Laura met his gaze, something raw and dangerous rising between them. This won't be like Seo Kong. I know, Jean said. This is personal. She nodded once. Then you need to trust me. Completely. He didn't hesitate. I do. Outside, the city hummed, unaware that two paths were about to collide in a way that would leave no one untouched. Laura felt it deep in her bones. Running was no longer an option. Not now. Not ever. Laura didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor with her back against the wall, knees pulled in, the photograph on the table across from her like a quiet accusation. Jean watched from the doorway, saying nothing, letting the silence do its work. You don't have to carry this alone, he said eventually. She didn't look up. I tried that once. People died. Jean stepped closer, slow, careful. Then tell me where it began. Laura exhaled. The sound shook. Africa. Training camp hidden behind a charity front. They took girls who had nowhere to go and taught us how to survive. Then they taught us how to kill. Miho stiffened. Who ran it? The man on the phone, Laura said. They called him Uncle. He said we were family. Jin's jaw tightened. Family is a word men like him steal. He taught me to never hesitate. Laura continued. Then one day he ordered me to kill someone I loved. Silence snapped tight. I refuse, she said. So I ran. Burned everything. Changed my name. I thought I buried him. Jean crouched in front of her. You didn't. No, she said. He buried me. And waited. Morning broke ugly and bright. News feeds whispered about Seo Kang's death. Rumors curled like smoke. Jin's phone didn't stop vibrating. They're mobilizing, Miho said. 3 crews. Different directions. Laura stood. Her fear had sharpened into focus. He's drawing us out. Yes, Jean said. He wants you in the open. Then we give him something else, she replied. We make him chase. Jean studied her. Explain. He thinks I'm alone, Laura said. He thinks you're a shield I'm hiding behind. We flip it. We make him think I'm bait. Miho frowned. That's risky. Laura met his gaze. So is breathing. Jean considered, then nodded. We control the field. They moved fast. False sightings. Leaked routes. A whisper that Laura Sam was leaving the city. Jin's people watched the watchers. By nightfall, the trap was set. Laura stood on a pedestrian bridge overlooking the river, hood up, hands in her pockets. She felt exposed and powerful at the same time. The city flowed beneath her, uncaring. A shadow detached itself near the stairs. You got slow, the voice said. Laura turned. Uncle stepped into the light, older now, face lined, eyes sharp. The same calm she remembered. The same hunger. I got free, she replied. He smiled. Freedom is a story we tell children. She stepped closer. You called me. Yes, he said. To see if you still belong to me. Gunmetal flashed in his hand. Before Laura could move, shots cracked from above. Uncle's arm jerked. He stumbled back, snarling. Jean emerged from the darkness, weapon steady. She doesn't belong to anyone. Uncle laughed, even bleeding. Ah. Jean Park. I wondered when you'd show. Men flooded the bridge. Too many. From both ends. Laura moved without thought. She disarmed, struck, rolled. Jean covered her, precise, relentless. Miho's team closed in, but the enemy kept coming. If you've stayed this far, pause right here. Like the video. Subscribe if you haven't. And tell us in the comments. When the past comes back for you, do you face it head on or run again? Uncle backed toward the railing, eyes never leaving Laura. You were my best. I was your weapon, she said. And I broke. He lunged. Laura caught him mid-step. They crashed into the railing. The river roared below. You could have been everything, he hissed. She leaned in, voice steady. I am. She drove her elbow into his throat. He gasped, lost balance, and fell backward. His scream cut off as the river swallowed him. Silence fell in pieces. Jean reached Laura as she sagged, adrenaline draining. He held her solid, real. It's over, he said. She shook her head. It's quieter. Sirens approached. Real ones? Days later, the city settled. Factions withdrew. The noise faded. Laura stood on a rooftop at dawn, wind tugging at her hair. Jean joined her. You can still leave, he said. She looked out over Korea waking up. I know. He waited. I won't, she said. Not yet. He nodded. Then we build something safer. She met his eyes. Together? Yes, he said. Until you choose otherwise. Laura breathed in, feeling the weight lift, not vanish. That was enough. Some stories end clean. This one wasn't finished. Not yet. The city pretended nothing had happened. Traffic returned to its familiar anger. Shops opened. People argued over coffee prices and missed trains. Korea had always been good at absorbing violence and moving on. Laura noticed that first. She stood by the window of the high-rise Jean had temporarily moved her into, watching life resume below. There was comfort in it. And danger. Normalcy made you careless. Jean entered the room quietly. He'd learned her rhythms now. When not to interrupt. When silence was the right language. You should eat, he said. She didn't turn. In a minute. He set the food down anyway. Miho confirmed it this morning. The river search turned up nothing. Laura nodded once. Uncle had always been hard to kill. Part of her expected this. That doesn't mean he's alive, Jean added. And it doesn't mean he's dead, she replied. Jean leaned against the wall. You're different since the bridge. She finally faced him. I stopped lying to myself. That usually hurts, he said. It does, she agreed. But it also clears things. They ate in silence. Comfortable. Earned. Later that afternoon, Jean convened a small meeting. No suits. No theatrics. Just trusted people. Seo Kang's territory is unstable, Miho reported. 2 factions are fighting for it. They're watching us. Laura leaned forward. They'll want to test the new balance. Yes, Jean said. And they'll test you first. Laura didn't flinch. Good. Miho frowned. You say that too easily. Laura met his gaze. Because fear already took enough years from me. Jean watched her, something unreadable in his eyes. That night Laura trained. Not because Jean asked her to. Because her body needed the release. She moved through drills alone, each strike deliberate, controlled. Not rage. Precision. Jean observed from a distance. She caught him eventually. Staring won't make you better. A corner of his mouth lifted. I'm not trying to be better than you. She paused. What are you trying to be? Alive, he said honestly. She nodded. Then you're doing fine. Weeks passed. No attacks. Just tension humming beneath the surface. Laura started helping more openly. Planning routes. Reading people. She wasn't invisible anymore, and oddly, that felt safer. One evening, as rain hammered the city, Jean poured 2 drinks and handed her one. To survival, he said. She clinked her glass against his. To choice. They stood close. Not touching. The air between them heavy with unspoken things. Do you regret saving me? He asked quietly. Laura thought about the restaurant. The knife. The moment she moved without thinking. No, she said. I regret trying to pretend I wasn't someone who could. He studied her face. You changed the balance. So did you, she replied. You let someone stand beside you. He didn't deny it. That night, Laura dreamed for the first time in years without waking up ready to fight. The dream didn't promise peace. But it didn't threaten her either. Morning came with bad news. Miho burst in, phone already raised. We intercepted chatter. Uncle's name is circulating again. Laura's pulse quickened. Where? Not a location, Miho said. An idea. Jean frowned. Explain. They're using his legend. Miho continued. Recruiting. Training. Telling stories about the woman who escaped him. Laura felt something cold settle in her chest. They're building an army on his myth. Yes, Jean said. And you're the ghost at the center of it. She exhaled slowly. Then killing him wouldn't have ended this anyway. No, Jean agreed. But facing him did. She straightened. Then we do something else. Both men looked at her. We take the story back, Laura said. We make sure they know he fell. Not because he was weak, but because he was wrong. Jean held her gaze. That will put you fully in the open. She nodded. I'm done hiding. A beat passed. Then Jean said, Then I'll stand with you. The choice settled between them. Heavy. Final. Outside, the rain slowed, the city lights reflecting like scattered stars. Laura felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not safety. Agency. And that was more dangerous than any weapon. Because when a woman like Laura Sam stops running and starts choosing her ground, the world around her has no choice but to adjust. The story wasn't ending. It was narrowing. And whatever came next would demand everything they had left. The move had to be public. Not loud. Not reckless. Public in the way that mattered. Visible enough to be undeniable. Laura stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of a simple black coat. No armor. No disguise. Just herself. The woman who had survived long enough to choose how her story would be told. Jean watched from the doorway. Once we do this, there's no quiet exit. She met his eyes in the reflection. There never was. They arrived at the venue just before dusk. An old cultural hall overlooking the river. Neutral ground. The kind of place where deals were whispered and legacies were tested. Jin's presence alone drew attention. Laura's drew something else. Curiosity sharpened into unease. Inside, men turned. Some recognized Jean Park instantly. Others recognized Laura more slowly, as if memory needed time to catch up. She stepped forward before Jean could speak. "My name is Laura Sam," she said clearly. "Some of you know it. Some of you think you do." A ripple moved through the room. "I was trained to disappear," she continued. "To be useful and silent. To belong to a man who called control loyalty." Eyes flicked. Whispers stirred. "That man is gone," Laura said. "Not because he was careless, but because his world no longer works." One man scoffed. "You expect us to believe a story?" Laura's gaze locked onto him. "No. I expect you to understand a warning." Jean stepped beside her. Not in front. Beside. "She isn't here to take power," Jean said calmly. "She's here to remove a lie." Laura nodded. "The lie that fear makes you strong. The lie that survival means obedience." Silence spread. Heavy. Dangerous. "You can chase ghosts," she said. "Or you can stop feeding them." A man near the back spoke up. "And if we don't?" Laura met his stare without flinching. "Then you already know how this ends." No threat. Just truth. They left without waiting for applause or agreement. Outside, the city breathed around them. Normal. Indifferent. Jean exhaled slowly. "You just changed the conversation." Laura looked up at the sky, the last light fading. "Conversations change people faster than bullets." They walked in silence for a while. "Will it work?" Jean asked. "It won't fix everything," she replied. "But it shifts the weight." He glanced at her. "What will you do now?" She thought of the girl she'd been. The woman she tried to erase. The fighter she'd accepted. "I'll stay," she said. "Not because I'm trapped. Because I choose to be." Jean nodded. "Then we build smarter. Quieter. Better." Laura stopped walking and faced him. "No more pretending." "Agreed," he said. They stood there, two people shaped by violence, choosing restraint instead of erasure. Weeks passed. The city stayed tense, but it held. Attacks slowed. Rumors faded. Not gone. Never gone. But quieter. Laura returned to the restaurant once. Not to work. Just to sit. To drink tea. To remember the moment everything cracked open. She didn't flinch when a knife clattered in the kitchen. She smiled. Jean watched her from across the room, saying nothing. Later that night, as the city lights reflected off the river, Laura leaned against the balcony railing. "I used to think strength was never hesitating," she said. Jean joined her. "And now? Now I think strength is choosing when to stop." He considered that. "You saved my life." She shook her head. "You gave me mine back." Some stories end with explosions. This one ended with clarity. Laura Sam was no longer hiding. Jean Park was no longer alone. And somewhere in the city, people adjusted their plans, their loyalties, their fears. Because when a woman refuses to be owned by her past, and a man chooses to stand beside her instead of above her, power has to change its shape. If this story kept you hooked till the end, don't leave quietly. Like the video. Subscribe for more cinematic stories like this. And drop a comment below. What would you choose? To run from who you are, or to finally stand in it?